Okay, so Brad and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Ed Forum today. By a show of hands, how many of you were able to join us in Oakland? All right, so I'd say probably about half of the group. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the different things that we did this year and share our takeaways for next year. Hopefully at the end, you'll all maybe share a little bit about what you would like to see or changes that you'd like to have for next year. So one of the things that was different this year, we had attempted to do some sessions that were specific to our state business partners. Unfortunately, the attendance wasn't there, so Brad and I, along with Renee, were given the opportunity to do some live Q&A sessions with employers. So I'm not sure, I see a few familiar faces, so I know that some of you were able to join us for that. But at first, those sessions seemed a little bit intimidating, to just sit up in front of a room and say, fire away. But they were really, I think, beneficial on both sides. I know for me, it was interesting to just see the questions that came up, and it gave Brad and I some ideas for topics to focus on moving forward. So I know for the membership side of the house, since there were a ton of questions there, one thing that I took away that we want to focus on in the future is independent contractors. So there still are a lot of questions out there about independent contractors, and I could see the want to dig in deeper and have a little bit more education around that topic. So I'll be working with my team on that. And also when it came to independent contractors, there were a ton of questions specific to a CalPERS retiree coming back as an independent contractor. So those are some things that we're looking to focus on for next year's forum. I know we've already had some small discussions around maybe taking some of those pod sessions and actually just focusing on independent contractors and working through some scenarios for those and retired annuitants. So all in all, I think that the forum was a success for my team. We really put a lot of work into the sessions this year. So for those of you that attended, I'm hopeful that you saw that in the material and the presentation. And I know the same goes for Brad too, so maybe he wants to chime in a little bit, share.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a really good education forum this year. We really did take the time to tackle some of the really tough issues that we have with, our school reporting. I remember at the exhibit booths, we all had a little round table. It was probably about 12, 14 of us, and we talked about what Tim basically went over today about the certificated members, and that's where the idea came up, to also present at the SEAC. That way we can memorialize it on tape, and the people that weren't able to attend, we could talk it through. And so next year I definitely want to do another presentation on that, because there are some kind of interesting questions coming out of here too. Like, I think we've captured like probably 95% of the reporting on it, but there's always going to be those little ad hoc things that have been brought up today that we probably need to do a little bit deeper dive on. So definitely looking at doing more education on certificated members. And then that goes along with publicly available pay schedules as well. We had a couple of pod sessions where we kind of broke out into little groups, and we did these fun little exercises to work out the pay schedules, and that created lots of good conversation and a lot of good questions. And again, I think we were able to hammer out the vast majority of the questions for those few little kind of oddball questions that came up. So next year I kind of want to focus more on those little oddball questions. We'll cover, of course, like the main nuts and bolts of doing these type of things, but then tackle more of these kind of oddball questions as I'm putting them that are kind of coming out now. Because when we do these SEAC presentations or we do the Ed Forum, right, we're trying to capture the most common way that something's reported, the true way it should be reported. But we always know there's exceptions to the rules, or there's going to be some issues that fall out. So I kind of want to focus more on those type of topics. And another issue that kind of came up quite a bit, and it was more on the public agency side, but I did hear from schools, was about the IRC limits as well, about the appropriate way to report when someone has hit the IRC limits. So next year we're going to do a class on that as well. And then also we wanted to talk too a lot about longevity pay the next ed forum. We actually brought up a few samples on this, and it actually brought up a lot of good conversation. And with longevity pay, we want to talk about the definition of what group or class is and what group or class consists of and how you should report longevity pay. Should it be a part of pay rate or should it be part of special comp? And those are the things that we want to talk about. So outside of that, we'll probably still do our same presentations we always do about, compensation 101, payroll 101, because there's always been newcomers to it. But then I want to tackle those kind of oddball questions that come out of our regular sessions as well.
And don't forget about temporary upgrade pay, because we had a session full of questions about that. So yeah, I think like Brad was saying, there's a need to kind of dig in a little bit more. So not just with the ed forums, so that's things that we'd like to start to tackle with this group. So if you have any ideas that you want to share for ed forum or even for the SEAC, I know you can kind of look at the agenda today and see we were a little bit light. So we're really looking to hear from you guys about, the things that you would like us to speak on. We could do that here or at the ed forum. If there are those one-off cases, we can certainly take those and kind of make them more generic so as not to maybe disclose who's asking the question or who the question is about, but we'd be happy to take those scenarios in and talk through them at these meetings, just if there is a need to get a little bit of a deeper dive or get into a little bit more of the exceptions like Brad was speaking to. So you can always reach out to the SEAC mailbox with your topics or ideas, or you could reach out to Brad or I and we can talk through the issue and how we can present it to best benefit the group. So before we wrap up, does anyone have any questions about the ed forum? Anything that they wanted to share? Any ideas for next year?
So I'm very new to payroll. I started payroll this year, right at the end of the year, beginning of the year, so very much hit the ground running.
Okay.
And I thought the ed forum was very great. It helped out a lot, and I definitely learned a lot. But one of the classes that I took was the OPEB, and it's something that I know I just kind of pay and wanted to learn more information on, so I took that class. And when I left, I kind of just felt like everything went past my
Okay.
head. So maybe if we can do like a 101 on what exactly it is and something like that, or even just get any kind of information on that, that would be great, because I know that's something that I wasn't really able to get too much information on.
All right, I'll definitely take that back.
Yeah, we'll
I'm
work
more
with the health team, yeah.
My team's more of the payroll reporting part. That's actually from, I believe, our health benefit services, but we'll take that back and let them know that. That's good feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Oh, one sec, sorry.
Oh, Bill has the mic behind you.
Robin Wood, Contra Costa County. I'm wondering if you could talk about independent contractors here at the SEAC meeting.
Sure.
Both CalPERS and CalSTRS.
Oh, okay,
If
sure.
maybe you guys could do a day where you cover at both meetings, because it comes up a lot from our Ed Services Department that they want to hire our retired members as independent contractors as opposed to employees.
Yeah, we could definitely work and maybe coordinate some type of a joint session with CalSTRS on that
That
topic.
would be awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you so much.
Yeah.
Any other questions or suggestions? All right. Thank you, Vina.
Thanks,
She said that I did very good.
Think
She
you
said
might
we
have-
all did. She said we all did. Oh, my goodness. Me and Tim are in competition. I could never beat Tim, I don't think.
One class suggestion for next year. You had previously at an ed forum a class strictly on salary schedules.
Yeah,
That would be a good class
Sure.
to revisit.
definitely want to do that one. Yeah, we're actually coming out with a circular too in the next probably month or so. We were trying to get it out before the forum, but we had some suggestions that we need to add to it, so we're working through those right now. But definitely do a class next year at the Ed Forum. We probably could even do another one here at the SEAC and then a circular letter. Agreed, because it's definitely our number one question we get in comp review and audits, I believe, for schools in particular. Good suggestion.
think that wraps up our Ed Forum highlights.
All
So
right.
now we have the round table.
I will always wish it's roundtable pizza, but it's always not. It's always discussion.
Brad loves pizza, everyone. So one thing, before we take any questions, I know that there are going to be questions about Social Security, so I'm going to let you all know that we are still working with Social Security. We do not have anything finalized at this time, so that is the only update that I am able to provide on Social Security today, is that we are still working with them. But if you have questions on anything else, have at it, or we might invite some of our team members up.
Sheila Walker, Tehama County Department of Ed. Uniform allowance.
Okay.
Can you explain what you mean by monetary value? I mean,
Yeah.
if you provide somebody with a shirt to wear, is that what you're talking about?
Yes. So when it comes to uniform allowance, you need to have, even though it's a statutory item, you still have to have the language, your MOU or labor agreement. And within that labor agreement, we need to know the conditions of payment. That way, when you're reporting it, we can back into that language and determine if you over-reported or under-reported it. So it can get a little tricky. I actually talked to quite a few people at the Ed Forum about this, because maybe you'll use a different service to do the cleaning of the uniform, and it can vary from time to time. What we recommend is you put an up to amount, but when you're putting that in language. But to answer your question, what is the monetary value? Yes, the monetary value is what you paid for that uniform. Be it a white T-shirt, $5 for the whole year. That's what your uniform allowance amount should be per person, that $5. I'm just making up an example. I've actually seen uniform allowances that were less than $1, but they are reportable. They're all statutorily defined. As long as it's not a safety item, more than likely, and you're requiring them to wear them, they're going to be reportable. But included in that, not just the purchase of the uniform, but if you're also maintaining the uniform, so you're also getting them cleaned for them, or you're getting them maintenance, you're having the badge sewn on or something like that, that also should be included in your language for uniform allowance. So our recommendation to you is to put an up to amount. So if you say up to $1,000, but you happen to only report $960 because maybe you use a different service, maybe you didn't have to maintenance as many uniforms because a couple people left and you didn't have to maintenance those as much. As long as you have an up to amount, we're going to be more lenient on following up on what's reportable, what's not. Now, of course, if it exceeds that up to amount, then we'll probably do a denial.
What if you're just providing them? I mean, how do you report something when you're not spending the money?
Yeah. If you're just providing them like a uniform allowance and say that you spend $100 for 10 T-shirts and there's 10 employees, then it should be $10 for that uniform allowance, and it should be spread out throughout the year. I know it sounds silly, but that's how it's supposed to work. And I know, and that sounds like an unrealistic example, but I have seen that. I've seen uniform allowances be 90 cents before per month.
Okay, what if we have a special thing on Fridays, and we have a special unit, and so they rent us special shirts and we wear a special thing on Fridays?
Is it required to be worn? If it's just a special fun thing and it's not required, I would say it's not a uniform. It depends on what's in your language for that one, but it usually has to be for something like you're used to identify yourself, right? Like, I'm wearing a T-shirt that says Orange County Office of Education, and I have to wear this because I stand outside with a sign that points to Orange County schools, right? That's part of the job. It's required I wear it, so that way people know I work there. That's kind of what a uniform is. But if you're like every Friday just wearing a shirt that says go out and read a book or something like that, right? More than likely that's not considered a uniform. That's just more for a fun type item, or you're trying to promote a special event.
Okay, so we have to report it as special comp even though we're not paying the employee for it.
Correct.
So then our records are not going to agree between what we've paid and to the employees and what we're reporting to you.
Right, so it's not something that you actually pay to the employees, you're just giving them that uniform allowance. And then if it's a uniform, I mean, it's not even an allowance, right? You're providing them that uniform. And per the statute, per the law, for whatever reason that is, it says that if you provide uniforms for your employees and it's not for safety purposes, it has to be reported to CalPERS. It's just seen as an extra benefit. Look at it like this. It's like instead of giving them the white T-shirt, you're giving them $5 for that white T-shirt, right? Instead of giving them the cash for it, you're giving them the T-shirt. That's how I always look at it, and that's why it's reportable. At one point, someone must have purchased those, and then that's where your receipts would have to come in, and that's how I would build the up to amount on your language.
Okay, is this usually an audit item?
Yeah, it's a big time audit item. Yes, we had some really nasty employer reviews. Actually, they're called employer reviews, just for you guys' purposes. Audit item. The example I'm using, we had one, it wasn't a school, I won't say what employer it was, but it was over a uniform allowance that they deemed was a safety item, but wasn't a safety item. At the end of the day, the uniform allowance itself was under $5 a month, but it was still a finding. It still took several years to close. Yes, it's absolutely an audit finding. Employer review finding. Observation. Man, they keep changing. Employer review observation.
Thanks, Kevin.
You're funny. So if we're paying for uniforms for our employees,
Yes.
and we've then determined an amount per employee, we're supposed to then take a contribution from that amount?
Correct. And report that as the special comp spread out over a 12-month period. Because you provided that, like the example I used, instead of giving them the cash, you gave them the uniform. And it benefits them because it would be used in their final comp.
But on the circular that you sent out, there was a whole list of things that you could not use as uniform allowance.
Right, most of those are safety items.
So no safety items can be used.
Like steel toe boots, Kevlar vests. I think there was certain types of badges that weren't reportable.
But you could report a polo shirt.
Yes.
And khakis.
A white T-shirt you could report if that's considered the uniform.
Okay, and
A blue jeans could be considered uniform.
No aprons.
Nope, that's considered like a safety item. Yeah, we did our best to lay out all the different examples of things that we've seen throughout the years.
Okay, all right. Well, that helps because we're
Yep.
having some discussion on that.
Sure, no problem.
All right.
Yeah, the circulator just came out, what, 2-3 weeks ago? Yeah.
We submit a pre-file to check for errors to CalPERS, and I understand there's a 10-day window before payroll is due that we can submit this file. Is there a consideration to open that up to be longer, like December's a very short month for us?
No,
I would like for there to be a consideration to widen that window.
can you explain why it's no, Tim, for me?
He will.
So let me put it this way. There can be a consideration. I'll make sure I is aware of the consideration. It won't get done in the next 10 years. Because the reason is that our coding for my CalPERS right now has a built-in requirement for the dates in which you can receive it. And it has to do with your payroll schedules, how the payroll schedules are defined, and then how you submit reports. And how many of you right now already submit fake reports that get consumed as earned period reports that we already have IT resources to use to back them out. So allowing you to do it 15 days, 20 days, a full month in advance would require us to change all our code logic, which right now, as Brad can say, any change to our MyCalPERS system on the compensation is at least a 4-year out window because of all the other critical things we deem necessary. So it's just not something that we're willing to do at this time.
But we could take it into consideration still. I
Yes.
mean, he's right, we have a lot
I
of
can tell you-
constraints, but we are very
I mean-
customer service focused, and
We can
But
we can
most of
put
you
it
can't
in the
even get your
hopper.
payroll in, like, they tell me, I don't get my timesheets until 15 days after the earn period's over.
Yeah.
So here she is. They want to know if they can submit an earn period report 20 days prior to the earn period end date. A test report. 20 days prior? Yes. So instead of our 10-day window, can we make our 10-day window 20 days or even longer prior to?
As long as the drop-down displays, if the drop,
How long would it take for us to do a system change to modify that business rule?
I mean, if you really want to test it, then we can definitely go into the test environment. What you would have to do is provide us the file, because internally we have a way to push the date of the system forward so that it does display. So if you provide us the file, we can modify the system date to a forward future date.
You guys can do that.
Can they?
Yeah, because you guys can do deep. I'm seeing yes. I forgot about that. In our test environment, we've got access to the test environment. There's a footer. And on there, there's a data source shift. So all of you who submit records today know how to shift between our 6 different sandboxes. And I believe there's also a date shift. So you can change the date of when the MyCalPERS application is and make it a future date and then submit your test report if you really want to. There's your workaround.
Yes, better answer.
Yay!
Well, can we change it in MyCalPERS production? No.
It would be a very complex SCR to take a lot of requirements. We have a ton of other things in the hopper right now too that would benefit schools as well. But we could definitely take into consideration. But it sounds like we have a good workaround in place. Yes.
I have a clarifying question from an email.
Oh.
She just wants to confirm, is uniform allowance only reportable for Classic members regardless of whether it is mandatory or optional requirement?
That is an excellent question. And Pepra, it is not reportable. It's only for Classic members. It's, yeah, so it's for Classic, it's statutory, and it must be reported unless it's for a safety item. For Pepper, there's no uniform allowance at all.
Okay, just a suggestion for our Sheila Walker, Tama County Department of Ed. If you guys have ever thought about this,
Sure.
about having a code for retirees, like STRS has a 61, so when you run your reports and stuff, it's very adamant that that's a retiree. And also non-contributory, having some sort of a code for that, because in my software system, they're reported as a non-member, because that's the way we have to code them in, and then I have to re-report them as a one non-contributory.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we can take that back and see what we can do with that suggestion.
We actually have some report that's kind of similar to what you're asking for. If I remember correctly, it's called the Appointment Detail Members Report. So what that does, it allows you to run a date range of
how many years?
Whatever range you're looking for, and then it will show you the contributory status and also if a member is on active or retired or separated.
Yeah, that's good on your side, but I'm talking about my software side.
Gotcha.
Right, they want a code that would talk back.
It will trigger automatically to
between
let
our
them know
systems.
if they're non-contributory or
Yeah.
retired, annuity, or retiree, I should say, yeah. Okay.
So I have a statement from an email regarding reporting all earnings. We've had several employees in our county that work for 2 different employers. For one employer, they are full-time, and for the other, part-time. All earnings were reported to CalPERS and contributions taken for years. The employees questioned why they were paying into PERS on both jobs, and in one case, an employee was refunded over $20,000. It's situations like this that make us leery to report all earnings.
So it sounds like from the time frame that probably happened quite a while ago. I know that we have triggers in place in the system now where we're catching these. But if an employer does identify an issue, they can always reach out right away to the membership reporting mailbox. So membership_reporting@calpers.ca.gov, and we can take a look at those. But we've built quite a few triggers into the system where workflows are generated in those situations. So hopefully now we're catching those. Let's see any other hands. Everyone must be hungry.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? All right. Hi, how you guys doing? My name's Aitwan. I work in employer education. Some of you met me at the Ed Forum, probably recognize me. Just letting you know that our 2020 business rules schedule is available on our website.
Oh, great.
So I encourage you all, if you have not ever attended our business rules class, to come. Me personally, I will be doing the San Jose and the San Bernardino office. Is there anyone from the San Bernardino location? All right, a couple of you. I'm really excited about that because I'm going to be going to Baker's like every day when I'm down there. But also my last class this year will be at the Orange Regional Office on December 3rd for you school employers. So if you are in the Orange Regional Office area, please feel free to attend. There's still plenty of room for the class. You can register via the Employer Education tab in my CalPERS. And if you need any assistance, please feel free to send us an email, or you can always contact us. So either way is fine. So anyone have any questions or anything? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is anybody interested in hearing about longevity pay and top step issues?
Oh, Ramona's gonna jump out of her seat.
I don't know what gave me that idea to talk about that, but it's one of a topic near and dear to my heart. So actually, I talked about this quite a bit at the Ed Forum, and I thought it'd be a good idea just to make sure we're all on the same page with this. And I've seen quite a few issues back in my office, not just with schools, but with public agencies as well, where employers are paying out longevity pay strictly based off the top step. And so, for instance, I'm going to just use an example. Say that you have a position A. Position A has 5 steps, steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 5 is the top step. So you can have a longevity pay, say that once a person's worked somewhere for 10 years, let's say they get a 5% special compensation for longevity pay, and that's okay. The issue is, and the common issue I'm seeing with quite a few employers, is that they're tying it to that top step. So they'll have their language, it will say, once a person's been in step 5 for 10 years, then they can get the longevity pay. We've had several cases go to court, and we've won on hearings on that you cannot create a step as a group or class. Step 5 can't be considered a group or class, and all special comp has to be available to everybody in the group or class. So your longevity pay has to be strictly based off of the amount of years it takes to qualify for it. So be it 10 years. So if your longevity pay says once someone works somewhere for 10 years, they can get the longevity pay. You cannot tie it to the top step. One of the reasons for that is we don't know where people start in their steps. Maybe I start at step 1 and I work for 5 years to get to step 5 and then work 10 years and got my longevity pay. But then let's say Vina gets hired and they bring her at step 5. It only took her now 10 years to get that longevity pay. And that makes us not an equal group or class, and it's not eligible for everybody. So at the end of the day, that longevity pay should just be based strictly on the amount of time someone works in that group or class and not tied to that top step. Another issue that we talked quite a bit about is that sometimes people will just put the longevity pay into the pay schedule. And that also is not appropriate either. Longevity pay is a special comp. It should be in your labor agreement or your MOU with the conditions of payment, all of the rules built into it as well, saying how much time it takes for them to get that longevity pay. It is okay if you have like a little footnote or something on your pay schedule that has like an asterisk, it says longevity pay 5%, 10 years. You know, that's okay, but we're not going to rely on that. We need to see it in the MOU or labor agreement language. Does that make sense?
With certificated employees, a lot of times on the salary schedules, the longevity is built in.
Is it a special comp or is it a pay, is it a step increase?
It's part of the staff.
If it's part of the step, then we don't consider that a longevity pay. We're just considering that part of your step increase.
I have a question from the email. What is the correct way to report retros? Is it pay the difference using the higher pay rate, or reverse previous earnings and re-report with higher pay rate and earnings?
You know, you could really do that either way. We do have a functionality, or a transaction type I call a RSA, retro salary adjustment, or for special comp, let's have one called a RSC, a retro special comp. So what you do in a retro salary adjustment is you put in that new pay rate, and then you use the date range feature to span it back to when that increase occurred. You do add in the additional earnings. That way the person gets the full service attached to that, and our system will automatically go back and put the pay rate in appropriately. What I see quite common as an issue with this is people will do a retro salary adjustment, but they don't do the date range feature, and they'll spike the earnings for 1 month. And then it leaves our benefit services, the people that do the calcs, they don't understand what's going on there, and they might not give you the pay increases back to when you're supposed to. So make sure to use that date range feature. Same thing works with the special comp, with a special comp, do not put the pay rate in there. Just, it's a 0 pay rate for the retro special comp. You put in the category and type, the total amount that it's supposed to be, and then make sure to split it out with that date range feature, especially with uniform allowance. We see that quite a bit. I think we had a school audit finding that every November, a specific school was giving a uniform allowance, and it was meant for the entire 12-month period back to the previous November. However, they just reported it as the lump sum. And what ended up happening was certain people retired, it actually doubled up both those lump sums and gave them a inflated retirement allowance, which caused a huge overpayment. It was a big issue. So make sure if you do those retro special comps that you use that date range feature to spread it out throughout the years appropriately.
And I want to add to that because we get this question a lot in payroll reporting. Should I use one or the other? And you can use both. But for schools, knowing you as well as I do, there's a lot of times because you guys choose not to create multiple appointments for each position, you'll have one pay rate at $15 an hour and another pay rate at $30 an hour, and you're trying to do a retro salary adjustment to $22. The retro now is lower than the highest pay rate you gave us, but it's higher than the lowest pay rate. Our system will not accept it because we view the higher pay rate higher than the retro. The other thing is that your pay rates often change from one month to the other. So you can't use a span when pay rates change. You also can't cross fiscal years or gaps of time for which a person doesn't work. So I have told employers that if you are consistent in how you report pay rate at a single pay rate, and you can do it by fiscal year and there is no gap of employment, retro salary adjustment span is fine. If you know a person received a merit increase halfway through and you can clearly do it in gaps by merit increase and there's only one position, one pay rate, you can do a retro salary adjustment. If you have a person who's working multiple positions under one single appointment and the pay rates fluctuate and the person's time fluctuates and they have gaps of time within their appointment and they cross fiscal years, your better option is probably just to back that position out back to 0 and re-report doing a prior period adjustment. So there's not one way that we're going to tell you over. I know the spanning for retro is a customer service friendly approach. It works best for public agencies, not really as well for schools. Because for a public agency, they generally have one pay rate, they don't have multiple positions. If you're a school administrative official who works 12 months and your pay rate's the same, and you got a COLA increase of 2% back, it's perfect. You consistently had one pay rate for the entire 12 months. You can do it as long as it doesn't cross fiscal years. But if it's anything else, your better option is probably to do a prior period adjustment transaction.
And that way works too.
Lots of options.
So longevity, going back to your favorite topic.
Yes.
So is it still true PEPRA members, in order for longevity to be credible comp, they have to be paid every month? Has to be spread over all the months?
Whenever you
Or
do
can they
any.
be paid, we have like twice per year in some
Yeah.
of our school districts.
PEPRA or Classic, we need to be reported as earned
As earned every month.
every month, or you can use that date range feature that I mentioned as well
Okay.
with the retro special comp. But if it doesn't work for you, yeah, you could just report it every month.
Okay. Because they're not being paid every month. They're just,
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And the main reason for that is, our system, it trolls and it finds your highest 12 or 36 months. And so like the example I used earlier, they reported every November. So in November, I get my lump sum for uniform that's meant for 12 months. But then let's say I retired in May of the next fiscal year. And Vina is my employer. Sorry, I keep picking on you. She does 6 months. She prorates it for only 6 months, which is the right thing to do. But she does as a lump sum again. The system looks from May of 2020 to back to May of 2019, and it picked up both those lump sums. So now I got 18 months of a special comp when it should have been 12. We do our best to try to catch those at the time of retirement, but unfortunately, sometimes, we don't catch them because it's not a huge amount or whatever. Audit comes around, employer review comes around, they make an observation of it. Those are the ones that really are surprisingly one of the more expensive types of fixes, because now we're downwardly adjusting the member back to when he or she retired, and we're collecting the overpayment. Yeah. Yes, Teresa.
Teresa Cooper, Stanislaus County. Going back to the certificated salary schedule with longevity, If they have to stay on any of those steps until they meet 15 years of service within that district, is that still okay to be on the salary schedule as a range and step?
So this is for certificated, and it's not really is it truly a longevity, or is it just part of their regular merit salary adjustments they get every year? Is it like, does it say, oh, after 10 years, then you get additional bump? Or is it just like every year they're getting a,
Some schedules say 15, and then the next row is 20, and they mean you need to be there for 20 years before you move to that next step. So you have a 5-year gap that you're staying at 15.
I mean, to me, that sounds more like a longevity pay and not really a merit salary adjustment. I would say that one should be separate from the pay rate and be reported as special comp. If you want, send it in and we can look at it, though. I mean, without seeing it, it's hard for me to tell, but just like listening to it, I think it's a longevity pay and not a pay rate.
And then just for clarification, for PEPRA members, longevity or special comp reporting, the must report in every month. When earned is STRS rule.
Yeah. Okay. For us, we also call it report as earned as well, but yeah, it should be reported every month, or you can report it once and spread it out. All right. Any other questions? And next year it's at Anaheim, and I want to go down the Matterhorn with Vina.
There's a picture for you.
Okay, I will.
Aw. All right, well, thank you, everyone. Bill, do you have anything to close with today?
Nothing else to close.
right.
Lunchtime.